Hello, everyone, and welcome to my coloring corner. Today, we are going to be reading from the Mystical Lands Chronicles, Book 2, Part 2, Chapter 1. The very thought of leaving the Isle of Shadows and venturing into the unknown sent shivers down Lila's spine. Though she knew time was of the essence, she still delayed leaving. The dangers awaiting her were as vast and enigmatic as the mystical lands themselves. Memories of the great renewing, which had claimed her father and brother, haunted her every waking moment. The sweet song of wind whispering through the trees held no comfort for her, but only served as a reminder of her own vulnerability. An intense wave of sadness washed over Lila as she thought of her father and brother. She remembered father's firm hand in raising her. He'd been a disciplinarian who believed everything he did was for the benefit of his family. Her older brother, Adron, had always been there to look out for her, even if it meant coercing and pushing her to do what he thought was best. Though they hadn't been close due to the 10-year age gap between them, Lila still felt immense love for him. The sudden ferocity of her grief pulled Lila back to the present and reminded her of the task at hand. Can I really do this? Lila whispered to herself, her voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. I'm just a girl from Northshire, with no idea how to face the Dark King. The days blurred together as she purposefully avoided making a decision. Every morning she rose before the sun, pulling on her worn boots and setting out into the forest to gather berries and herbs. Her nimble fingers moved deftly among the foliage, plucking ripe fruits and delicate blossoms with practiced precision. Good morning, Lila, chirped the village baker, Mrs. Thimbleton, as she passed by, her arms laden with fresh loaves of bread. Won't you try one? You know I love your breads, Mrs. Thimbleton, Lila replied, taking a warm roll with a grateful smile. She savored the taste of the soft dough melting on her tongue, allowing it to momentarily distract her from her inner turmoil. Throughout the day, she would perform small tasks around the village, mending fences, feeding livestock, and helping her neighbors with their chores. In the evening, she would sit at her mother's side, listening intently as the older woman recounted tales of ancient heroes and forgotten magic. Her mother would scoff at the idea of magic in their lives, as she believed that magic was not for humans. But it filled the story she told with wonder. Lila and her mother's shared laughter filled their cozy little cottage, creating a temporary sanctuary from the weight of the prophecy resting upon Lila's shoulders. As the days went by, Lila wrestled with her inner thoughts, desperate to tell her mother about her prolific dream, prophetic dream, sorry. After her much hesitation, she finally revealed the story of her mission and the magic crystal. As she expected, her mother immediately dismissed it as nonsense, believing fate played no role in their lives. She reached out and put a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder, smoothing back her hair. I worry, she said. I don't trust the mysticism behind such a calling. Yet, for reasons unknown to them both, Lila's mother began to slowly show hesitant support for her daughter's calling. Despite her skepticism, she supported Lila and urged her to follow her heart. Your father used to say that there was a greatness within you, my dear, her mother whispered one night, eyes twinkling with pride in the firelight. He believed that you were destined for extraordinary things. Destined or not, I'm still afraid, Lila confessed, her voice trembling. The journey is so long and dangerous, and I don't know if I have what it takes to face it all. Lila's mother reached out and grasped her hand. Sometimes, my love, It's not about being fearless, but rather finding the courage within ourselves to face our fears, she said gently, squeezing Lila's fingers. You are stronger than you think. Lila's heart swelled with love for her mother, but also with uncertainty. Could she truly be the hero her father had believed her to be? Or was she setting herself up for failure, even considering such a daunting task? As the sun dipped below the horizon each evening, Lila found herself gazing at its fading light, both entranced and terrified by the thought of walking away from everything she knew. The darkness that settled over the village seemed to mirror the shadows encroaching upon her own heart, making it more difficult to find the courage to answer the call echoing through her dreams. Is this really what I must do? She wondered, her thoughts a tangled mess of doubt and fear. Can I truly become the protector the prophecy speaks of? But there were no answers waiting for her among the stars, only silence and the ever present sense of destiny closing in around her. Days turned to weeks, and the sun's once warm rays began to cool as autumn crept upon the village of Northshire. Golden leaves from spiraled from ancient trees, carpeting the ground below in a delicate tapestry of reds, yellows, and oranges. The air was crisp, holding Lila's breath in clouds before her as she went about her daily routine. She could no longer deny that time was slipping through her fingers, each day bringing her closer to a decision she couldn't seem to make. Are you well? Lila asked old Thomas, the village blacksmith, as she passed by his forge one chilling morning. You've got that look of someone with a great weight on her shoulders. Lila hesitated, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. I'm just, I'm grappling with a difficult choice, she confessed, starting into the roaring flames of the forge. It feels like I'm being pulled in two different directions, and I don't know which path is the right one. Ah, said old Thomas, wiping his brow with a soot-covered hand. That's never an easy thing, my dear. But remember this. Sometimes it's not about choosing the easiest path, but the one that will help us grow. Thank you for your wise words, Thomas, Lila whispered, her eyes glassy with the unshed tears. With a small smile, she continued on her way, mulling over his words. As the day grew shorter and first frost kissed the earth, Lila found herself deep in thought. Her nights consumed by the restless pull of the magic crystal and the prophetic dreams that haunted her. She imagined embarking on a quest, traversing unknown lands, and facing unimaginable dangers. Yet she shuddered at the thought, weighed down by fear and uncertainty. What if I'm not strong enough to do this? She asked herself, her fingers tracing the edge of the crystal as she gazed out at the moonlit village. What if I fail? Failure is a part of life, Lila, came her mother's voice, soft as a whisper in the wind. Even heroes stumble and fall, but it's how you rise from those falls that defines you. Mother, Lila murmured, clutching the magic crystal to her chest. I wish I could be as brave as you think I am, but I'm so afraid. Then let your fear fuel you, my love, her mother's voice urged on the breeze. Let it remind you of what you're fighting for. But the fear that collided within Lyra's stomach refused to dissipate, tightening its grip until it threatened to choke her. Whispers of doubt echoed through her mind, even one louder than the last, until they drowned out everything else. Enough! Lila cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I can't do it. I won't go on this quest. I'm not the hero they want me to be. I'm just a girl who is too afraid to make a chance. As she made her decision, the magic crystal seemed to lose its luster, casting a dim glow over her tear-stained face. Lila knew that denying her destiny might bring dire consequences, but the weight of the world was far too heavy for her young shoulders to bear. And so, with a heavy heart, she turned away from the call to adventure, choosing instead to remain within the familiar walls of her village, seeking solace in the warmth of her mother's embrace and simple comforts of home. As winter neared, the air took on crisp, biting edge that seemed to seep into Lila's very bones. The once vibrant leaves that had surrendered their emerald hues for the fiery shades of late autumn now began to wither and fall, forming a brittle carpet beneath her feet. The village of Northshire, nestled among the thickets of ancient trees, prepared itself for the approaching winter, huddling under blankets of fog that gathered each morning like a shroud. Lila's new-found peace was broken one day as she returned to the village, her arms laden with baskets of late autumn elderberries, acorns, and oyster mushrooms. She had spent the day foraging. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting light shadows that seemed to reach out to her, whispering secrets she could not hear. Something unsettling permeated the atmosphere, a prickling sensation that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. Something isn't right, she murmured, her breath misting in the chill air as she approached the town gates. Her eyes were drawn to an odd sight, strange cryptic symbols etched into the weathered wood. They appeared to have been carved hastily, jagged lines intersecting at odd angles, forming a mysterious message she couldn't decipher. The markings pulsed with an ominous energy that sent a shiver down her spine. Who would do this? Lila wondered aloud, her voice quivering. And why? Her heart quickened as she scanned the area, searching for any sign of who might be responsible for the eerie symbols. The village seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her to uncover the truth. She knew deep down that these markings were another call to adventure, one she could no longer ignore. Is this a warning? A threat? Whispered Lila, her fingers tracing the grooves of the symbols as though they held the answers just beyond her grasp. She tried to shake off the foreboding that clung to her like a morning dew, but it refused to be cast aside. Whatever it is, I must find out. Lila's voice barely audible, even to herself. Something terrible is happening, and I can't stand by any longer. With a newfound determination, Lila turned her gaze towards the horizon, where the sun had almost disappeared behind the distant mountains. It was time to face the unknown, to break free from the fear that had held her captive for so long. And though she had once refused the call to adventure, the strange symbols on the town gates seemed to scream at her, begging her to reconsider. Mother, she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes, I know I have been afraid, but I can't let that stop me any more. I must find the truth behind these mysterious symbols, whatever it takes. The wind sighed through the trees as if acknowledging her resolve. With a deep breath, Lila stepped forward, advancing towards the little cottage she shared with her mother. Lila's footsteps echoed through the empty streets of Northshire, her breath visible in the chilly air. The village was eerily silent, with not a soul in sight. A cold unease settled in her chest as she passed vacant homes and deserted market stalls. It was though every villager had vanished in thin air. Where is everyone? Lila whispered to herself, her voice trembling. She tried to ignore her gnawing fear. The strange symbols on the town gates must have something to do with this sudden emptiness. As she approached her cottage, Lila's heart hammered against her rib cage, and she struggled to breathe. The door hung open, its hinges creaking mournfully in the wind. She hesitated for a moment, and gathered her courage before stepping inside. The scene that greeted her was one of utter devastation. Their once cozy living area had been ransacked, furniture overturned, cushions ripped apart, and their meager possessions scattered across the floor like discarded playthings. Lila's hands trembled as she picked up the remains of her mother's favorite vase. She shattered into pieces, its vibrant colors now dull. "Mother!" she called out, her voice barely audible as panic clawed her throat. "Mother, where are you?" Deeper in the cottage, the destruction only worsened. In the kitchen, pots and pans were strewn about, remnants of their last meal splattered across the walls. Lila's stomach turned. Bile rised in her throat as she forced herself to continue. "Please," she pleaded, her words swallowed by the oppressive silence. "Please be safe." A gust of wind whipped through the open door, the chill air seeming to settle on her bones. Lila's eyes filled with tears. This wasn't a random act of violence. It felt personal, deliberate. "Who did this?" she whispered, her voice crackling. "Why would anyone want to hurt us?" But as the shadows deepened in the corners of the room, Lila realized that it was not just her home that had been targeted. The entire village had been abandoned, and the strange symbols on the town gates seemed more sinister with each passing moment. "Something terrible has happened," she murmured, her thoughts racing, "and I have to find out what." Lila wiped her tears away and set her jaw. She would not let fear hold her back any longer. Whatever force had torn through her home and driven her people into hiding, she would confront it head on. "Mother," she whispered, her voice filled with resolve, "I promise you I will find you and bring you back home." As the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the horizon, Lila searched her ravaged cottage, gathered what she might need before setting off into the gathering darkness. With every shred she recovered, she grew more determined and to unravel the mystery that loomed over Northshire, and to save her mother from the unknown fate. Lila's heart pounded in her chest as she cleared the wreckage of her home, seeking any sign of her mother. Her hands trembled, her breath coming in short gasps as she dug through the debris that covered the floor. And then, as if the universe itself had answered her prayers, Lila found it, a single scrap of parchment, hastily scrawled with ink, its edges singed and torn. "Dear Lila," she read it aloud, her voice shaking with emotion. "They have come for me, the cursed ones. I overheard them speaking of the Dark King's orders. Find help, my love. Be brave." A sob tore through Lila's chest as she clutched the parchment to her heart. She knew deep down that they had been no that it had been no mere accident or coincidence. It was now clear that her mother had been taken by the very force that haunted her dreams and stalked her every waking thought. The cursed ones, minions of the Dark King himself, had infiltrated her peaceful village, leaving destruction in their wake. "Find help," her mother's words echoed in her mind. But who could she turn to? In a world of darkness and deceit, where ancient magic lay dormant and forgotten. Who would believe her tale? Think, Lila, she muttered to herself, pacing back and forth in the ruined cottage. You cannot do this alone. You need allies, ones you can trust. As she considered her options, Lila's thoughts wandered to the mysterious prophecy of the protectors. If there was the slightest truth to the ancient tales, perhaps there were others like her, bound by fate, who could stand against the encroaching darkness. And perhaps just maybe they could help her save her mother from the clutches of the Dark King. Mother, Lila whispered, making her decision. I will find you. I will save you. I will not rest until the Dark King's reign of terror is brought to an end. Heart welling with purpose, Lila gathered what few belongings remained untouched by the Cursed One's rampage, and the simple dagger passed down from her father, a worn satchel filled with their last good provisions, and the mysterious crystal that had set her on this path, still safely hidden beneath the floorboards. She donned a sturdy cloak, knowing that the nights would grow colder as the autumn's chill gave way to winter's icy grip. She would need every ounce of strength and courage she possessed for the journey that lay ahead, but she knew that she was ready. The time had finally come to embrace her destiny as the protector of the mystical lands. As Lila stepped out of her cottage into the moonlit night, her mother's words echoed in her mind once more. Be brave. With each step she took away from her shattered home, she felt her fear being replaced by a fierce determination. No matter what it takes, mother, she vowed, her voice steady and resolute. I will bring you back home. Lila wandered into the darkness to the other side of the village, where old Myra's cottage held a special item that she would need for the journey. Old Myra's home was just as ransacked as Lila's own cottage had been, but she found the small pouch she sought, remembering that the herbs it contained would provide protection. Old Myra had told her about these special plants long ago, and she knew old Myra would want her to have them. Fox, squirrel, rabbit, can you hear me? Lila thought, reaching out telepathically to her animal friends. I'm leaving to find my mother. Will you help guide me? Always, Lila, Fox's voice echoed in her mind, warm and reassuring. We'll be by your side every step of the way. Stay vigilant, young one, warned Squirrel, her thoughts a flurry of activity. The cursed ones are cunning, but you must not let them deceive you. Believe in yourself, Rabbit added softly. Your heart is pure, and your will is strong. You can overcome any obstacle. I appreciate your confidence in me, Lila breathed, feeling a surge of gratitude for the love and support of her friends. She was not alone. As the moon ascended into the dark sky, casting its silver light upon the village, Lila stepped through the gates of Northshire, leaving her village behind. The strange symbols etched in the woods seemed to shimmer, as if they held secrets yet to be revealed. But there was no time to dwell on such mysteries. The hour was late, and her expedition had only just begun. With each step she took into the unknown, Lila felt the weight of her fears and doubts begin to lift. In their place, a fire ignited within her soul, fueled by love and resolve. Though the path ahead was fraught with danger, she knew that she would face whatever trials awaited her. Mother, I'm coming, whispered Lila. Lila whispered, her voice steady and resolute. I will find you, and together we will defeat the Dark King. And so, beneath the watchful gaze of the stars, Lila's quest began, a journey that would take her beyond the boundaries of her world and into the heart of the mystical lands. And that is the end of chapter 1. Next weekend, next Sunday, we will read chapter 2. And of course, next week, we will color a page from chapter 1 as we continue the journey with Lila through the mystical lands in her quest to defeat the Dark King. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the reading of chapter 1, book 2. And of course, I hope you will join me again next Sunday. Until then, always remember to like, comment, and subscribe to any YouTube artist that you enjoy. And always remember to relax, color, and stay safe, everyone. Until next time, bye bye for now.